Shawzin, the pattern trader, with your question and answer period. Sorry, I'm a little late today. Had a doctor's appointment of all things, so I don't know if this is going out to our viewers. I'll wait a little bit to see if anybody streams in. I'm happy to take any questions about what's going on in the markets right now. Had a relatively quiet day, although I do see a break in the metals that is really interesting. Everyone's expecting the gold to go up because of the anticipated inflation, and I've been saying not so fast. I don't think so. So I'll just wait a few minutes to see if anybody streams through. Happy to take any questions. Just checking on various markets here. Pound New Zealand's making a nice move up today. I've always advocated that this thing is going to make a move higher, and I think it will. So if anybody's out there who wants to ask any questions, be happy to have a chat with you guys about what's going on in the markets right now. Stock market's relatively quiet today. I see some things that I really like short, and some things that I really like on the long side too. So right now it's a real stock picker's market. I see that there are a number of people on the YouTube thing, but I don't see anybody streaming in here. So maybe I don't know if I'm doing anything wrong here. Hey, Rob. We've got Rob here. So what is my favorite short right now? I probably, Zoom is always on my hit parade of favorite shorts. Zoom is in a protracted decline, although it's just kind of hanging in here, grabs a foothold between 310 and 320. I am short, just full disclosure, I am short Zoom right now. I don't see how this thing can go higher, but it could continue just to mess around in this area. So between 310 and 320 is just, backing and filling, but, we've got this cascading lower trend line here. And I think that, ultimately Zoom will give way to much lower levels. So right now, Zoom's trading at 320 bucks. I think you could see the stock at least $100 lower. So Angel, or is it Angel, or says first time here. I'm not sure if you're a man or a woman. So welcome, Angel. Hey, Jana, how are you? Michelle, thanks for checking in. Hey, Paul, Zahid, we've got Buddy, we've got Zeba. So welcome, guys. Hopefully you guys had a great weekend. Paul says, what do you think about Australian versus Swiss on a buy? I haven't checked out that pair in a while. Not on a buy. It looks like, I was expecting a short covering rally in these Swiss pairs, and I think you've had it. And if you didn't make your money, I think, time to, I actually, it looks like it's going to go the other way right now, Paul. So, I would, I think you're at a huge resistance level here. You got knocked back. Let's see how we consolidate here, but it wouldn't be on my, it wouldn't be first on my radar right now. So look for U7 now. It says I'm short at 320 on Zoom. So I came in short, and it opened lower, and it's kind of been drifting higher. And I hate that. So if I'm short, I actually prefer the other way around. I prefer that if I'm short, that the market initially rallies and then falls. What I hate to see, like in Zoom, whereas you open, you go lower, and then you start going higher. And then you kind of have a key reversal against, your position. So That's why I kind of wait until the close. So right now we're at the top end of the range, but it's all going to be about the close. And I still think that this is a downtrending market, but I hate to see key reversals against me. So if this were to go up another couple of dollars and close up there, I still think the long-term chart, the short-term, everything looks lower. But I just hate to see this kind of trading action where something goes in my favor and then starts drifting up. And so it's all about the close. So if we close, $2 lower from here, it's still going to look like it's a downtrend and all's good. So right now we're just at the high of the day, and I just hate seeing that. Buddy says, how about pound yen? So I think these yen pairs look like they're a buy, especially Australian yen. And pound yen, I think, is grabbing a foothold here. Doesn't look like it, but I think pound yen probably grabs a foothold here and goes higher. This chart is still going, in an uptrend. You have a kind of a mini key reversal today when you make a new low, look like you might be closing on the high. And, I would be inclined to, think that this is going to go higher. Ziba says, do you trade cryptocurrencies? I look at everything, Ziba. My wife is the one in the family that trades the cryptos. She's the rich one in the family. So, I traded them early, and then when they got away, I couldn't buy them anymore. When something's like parabolic, I would just wait for some more time and, some more patterns, some more consolidation. So I don't trade them, but I look at everything. Ebenezer says, can you share your screen? I'm not sure with this software, and I'm going to have to ask my team if I can. They've got a whole bunch of things, down below here, but I don't see any way to connect my screen. So Zahid says, what about euro pound on the long side? Yeah, I could definitely see that. I think this is in a stealth uptrend. We kind of staked out this funky looking double bottom here. I'd like to see how we close. We've got some resistance at 87.5. We're trading at 86.70. This may, require still a little bit more of a sideways drift. Look, this is not a big, mover. I mean, it just, it goes in huge consolidations, and then you get your move, and then it goes into another huge consolidation. So, but I would think on balance that I would be looking for this thing to go higher. Yeah, you had a huge key reversal last week, and I think I would probably be inclined just to see how this week shakes out, and then buy the high of this week. We'll see how it is. But yeah, I do think that euro pound will go higher over the long run. Buddy says, I don't know what XXX Swiss. I don't know if you mean dollar Swiss. I'm not quite sure what you mean there. Ubaid says, what are your thoughts on gold? I put out my newsletter this weekend, and I'm pretty proud of it because gold has been trading in this broad ascending, broadening price pattern. And when gold was trading at 1950, I was telling our members we're going all the way down to 1700. That was my target. Actually, it was between 1650 and 1700 because that's where the lower end of the ascending broadening triangle kicked in. And we got to 1671, and you had this double bottom and these key reversals right around that 1671. So in 2 weeks, it went to 1671, closed much higher, went sideways another week, re-challenged that 1671, closed higher. Now, typically, I would say, man, that's just a great looking double bottom. I don't feel that. I feel that the way gold has come down, it's really going to take something for it to move through all of the pressure that is built along the way. So at best, if it has formed a double bottom, I would like to see, many more weeks of sideways consolidation hanging in this area. I said a close above 1650 would probably put this thing higher. We didn't close above 1650. And silver looks terrible. So silver is starting to drift lower, starting to turn, I shouldn't say looks terrible. It's in this, sideways consolidation, but right now there's a lot of hype, there's a lot of talk that there's a lot of inflation out there, and you think, well, let's go buy some gold. And everyone's saying, go buy gold. I'm not buying that story because guess what? If there's higher inflation, there's also going to be higher interest rates. And higher interest rates are like kryptonite for gold because all of a sudden, from a 0% return, you can get a 1.5, almost 2% return on a 10-year treasury where gold's not yielding you anything. And there's also been a lot of pull out of gold and into the crypto. So I think the overall gold market is about 9 trillion. Cryptos are about 2. So you're starting to see, people who want to hedge, they're starting to go into cryptos. So I don't love gold here. And at best, I would just leave it alone and watch it for the next few days and few weeks. So it has put in this double bottom at 1671, and normally if I saw that, it would be go to town. But I think it's going to take some time. Samathale says, Paul says, can you take a look at Australian US dollar? Yeah, so these dollar pairs are, kind of locked in this sideways. And I think, dollar can go, sideways for weeks and months. And I think that's what, we're going to see here. That, yeah, it looks like the dollar is kind of had a little support, had a little run. Looks like it's petering out, but I think it's just going to be slow. Guys, when I look at a market, I'm trying to find a market that's going to go from one level to the other. So if I short Zoom here at 320, I'm looking for it to go to 275. I don't want to just dick around with something that's just, in no man's land. And I think Australian US looks great long term, higher. I just don't know how long it's just going to be in this miasma. So yeah, I'm keeping an eye on it, but it doesn't really do anything for me right here. Rob says, do you still like WRK long? I sure do. It's just hugging these highs. Today it opened higher. It's trading at or near multi-week, multi-year highs. So I love WRK. Yeah, I love the price action here. I would keep adding. This thing is just a keeper. It's very unsexy. It's very off the radar. And that's really where I look to be right now. With the indexes making all-time new highs, I think you're going to get a lot of volatility here. You're going to get a lot of back and forth. And so I'm looking for names that, if I'm looking long, just very under the radar kind of stuff, banks or REITs or something off the radar. I love this stock, WRK. I think it's going to go higher. If you see it over last week's highs at 54.30, I would just keep buying it. Let's see, did I miss anything else here? So what else is on your mind? What else are you guys trading? Markets are pretty quiet right now. Like I said, the U.S. stock markets are, banging around all-time highs. But it's really a stock pickers market because it's very misleading. You have the NASDAQ on the all-time high, but the NASDAQ really, is moved by 5 stocks. Microsoft, Apple, Amazon, Netflix, and Google. Those 5 stocks comprise like 20% of the index. So they're all making new highs, and they look like they're going to make new highs. And I like those stocks long. But then there's a whole underbelly of the NASDAQ that is really, nobody's really talked about it. There's been a crash in the NASDAQ already. You look at some of these stocks, like, Peloton and Zoom and DoorDash and, all of the EV plays, F-Cell, Plug Power, some of the SPAC plays, CCIB, they're off 30 to 50% from their highs, and nothing's even happened yet. We're still making all-time highs. So there's this kind of 2-tier market that's going on. So it really becomes incumbent upon you to be really selective and not think, just because you pick a stock, a rising tide is going to raise all ships, meaning that just because the market's going up, it'll pull or drag your stock, higher. You really have to be very selective and understand exactly, where you're playing. So, I like WRK long, I like Zoom short. So, GK says, what about dollar yen, Australian yen? So again, I think all these yen pairs, look like they're strong. And Australian yen is kind of in this sideways consolidation, and I don't think this is going to translate to a sell-off. You're at a resistance level, but if I'm going to trade a yen pair, I probably go for the euro versus the yen, or the pound. But yeah, these yen pairs are hanging out at huge multi-year inflection points. And I don't know, they could turn from here. So I mean, like dollar yen, under 110 here, maybe a great short. I want to see how we close this week, and I think dollar yen, maybe the one to look at to go short. So he says, do you adjust your stop loss larger if your trade is slightly going against you, but you believe in the setup? Yeah, sometimes that's a dangerous thing to do. Sometimes I just set my stop losses real wide. And, frankly, I don't really advertise this. It's not a good idea in the main. But, there are certain positions like pound New Zealand dollar where I don't even put a stop loss in. And, I guess last week was a great, reflection of that. So I believe from every way I've looked at pound New Zealand that thing is going to go higher. I got in at the 193 level. I added, in areas right around where we are now. And then last week, it hit a resistance level at 98 and then came down 300 pips. Now that's, obviously very scary, but I'm holding my ground, and looks like we dug in here on pound New Zealand. And this is probably a good low to start looking at pound New Zealand dollar higher. So there are certain trades where if I see a pattern that I really trust, I know there could be a lot of noise and I could just be jerked out on, some arbitrary noise. And so sometimes I'll just, not put in a stop loss. Like Zoom. I'm short. I don't have a stop. I mean, if it just closes higher today, I'll have to look at it. I don't like that. I don't like things that reverse in my face. But there are certain things that, I feel like pretty, dead certain. I know what I'm looking at. And so I'll either put a very wide stop loss or no stop loss. And I hate to tell that to you guys, because one day you're not going to put a stop loss and you're going to get detonated. And then you're going to say, hey, that Mark guy got me in all this trouble. So, I shouldn't say that, but yeah, some things, it really depends. It depends on your setup. It depends what you're looking at. It depends what your target is. And, since I try and look at the bigger term objectives, you have to understand that in the shorter term, you could absorb a lot of noise while it's getting there. For instance, pound New Zealand, to my mind, double bottomed at 185. But, I was telling our members that even though it's double bottomed, I don't think it's going to go straight up. It's likely just going to be very difficult in here. And that's exactly what happened. It just banged back and forth for 2 months, but I just held my position. And then one day it was just up 300 pips. And, and then I held it. And I'm probably going to add to my position today again. So there's certain things where I feel if I really understand, which is an arrogant thing to say, you should never say you understand the market. But, I just sometimes the way I look at things, and like I've looked at that pound New Zealand on the monthly, the weekly, the daily. I've looked at the price action. I've really broken it apart. And even though it was coming down even more than I thought it would last week, I just said, you know what? In my mind, can I play out, can I see it, keep going just down through all of this monthly action? And I couldn't. And then lo and behold, today it comes out of nowhere, puts on a nice price bar, and it's right back in the trend again. So that's what I look for. I try and find patterns that I really trust, that I really kind of understand what's going on there. And that's why you have to be very selective. You can't just be all over the place trading some 15-minute chart. If I feel good on the monthly, the weekly, the daily, then I can defend, being in there. So right now, pound New Zealand's 195 and a half. I started getting in at 193, in early March. So it's still well above where my entry is. Now, I did add in a whole bunch of areas around here, and I'm a little bit, lower on those positions. But I guess what? A month from now, I think you and I will be talking a whole different tune. Um, so I think pound New Zealand, is probably a sneaky thing. And Tesla's the same thing. I'm kind of Tesla's setting up for what could be a bullish breakout here. Looks like it's got some, good price action. It looks like it's got a double bottom here. It's just got a ton of resistance at 720. So I want to see kind of, it looks like we're going to close right into a good resistance at 700 today. And then Tesla could be, a pretty good buy from here. It's got a really good looking double bottom. It held at the long term uptrend line. So Tesla is something that's percolating on my radar also. Um, so James says, you told me last week to look at IYR SPG for buy and hold investment. If possible, can you look at a possible good buy on each level? So those are, interest rate plays. They give a good yield from 3.5 to 4.5%. So they pay you while you're in there. And I like IYR. I do. I think you can start, putting your nose in there. Just, maybe don't buy all. Buy some here. Buy, some if it comes off. But, I think that it's still below pre-pandemic highs. And I think it's going to get there. So I think you could make 10% on the upside and get 3.5% while you're waiting. So, if you're looking for one of those kind of plays, I would start, incrementally getting in right here. It's trading at 90, a hair under 94. The high was 101 before the pandemic. And so that's a 10% move on the upside, and you get 3.5% while you're waiting. And I don't think there's going to be a lot of risk or volatility in something like that. So I think that's a slam dunk. I have some money in there. SPG, you get a higher percent yield. I think it's whatever, 4.5% now, almost 5%. It looks like it's got some resistance. It's kind of hanging out in here. But again, these aren't plays that you're looking to, make a monster move on. You're just parking your money and getting paid a huge return relative to anything else right now, and for not a whole lot of risk. So I would start poking my nose in those if that's what you're trying to diversify your long-term portfolio. So I'm looking at Zoom starting to drift a little lower. So went to 322. It's starting to drift lower. I think that this thing is done. Dirty deeds done dirt cheap, as the old song goes. So I'm comfortable. I've had every time that thing gets to 330, I just short it. I mean, I've made so much money just shorting it as it gets to 330, 335. I just arbitrarily just sell into it. It goes down $10 after that. Take that. I had a day where I did that twice, where I shorted at 335. It went to 321. Then it went right back to 332. I shorted it again and made more money. It's just, yeah. I think, once you understand what the game is in the chart, it's like dollar yen was the same thing. Dollar yen, on a long-term chart was having these huge up moves, but each up move was lower than the last. And once I realized what the game was, every time, it had this up move, I would just sell into it. And I think Zoom's the same thing. GK wants to look at Euro Australian. Yeah, I think that's setting up for what we call a busted price pattern. So on the long-term charts, it looks like a funky double top head and shoulders, but I think it's digging in here at the 155, and it's putting in a nice base, and you're probably going to get a move higher out of here. Let me just look at the daily. Yeah, I like this a lot. This is just kind of going sideways and building a base. It double bottomed around 152 to 153. So I think the next move is going to be higher. So I think that that's a really good risk reward if you're patient. Sometimes you have to be patient on these, cross pairs. Cello says, I see a double bottom on the FTSE, the UK 100. On the weekly, I mean, there is a weekly double bottom there, 5,400. And now you're poking around this resistance around 7,000. I mean, the US markets are obviously stronger because the US markets have made new all-time highs while this is still, considerably under the pandemic high. So I don't know. Looks like you have a little resistance, but it is incrementally pushing higher. Louis says, what are your thoughts on EU, the European Union or the euro? And the euro against what? The euro against the US dollar? So you got to help me out, guys. Got to be a little bit specific here. Euro US dollar, I think, is also going to bang around in a range. I mean, I do think the dollar is going to weaken over time, but I think it's just going to be crummy trading in dollar for, several weeks. So like I said, I'm just looking for things that are going to move. I don't want to sit and watch this. I'm not trying to trade in and out, playing chicken with my broker for, 30 pips. If I can't see my way clear to 150 pips, I'm not even going to do an FX trade. You're always welcome, GK. Yeah, so these indexes, got to all-time highs, and now, I can imagine that you may get a real compression in volatility, which again is just not what I'm looking for. I want to find something that moves, and a lot of these markets feeling like the volatility is being squeezed out of them. Gold now, the daily range is small. Everything is, the volatility is compressing. I mean, we've had such high volatility for so long, and I would hate to think that we go into really some sideways, market. But there's always something going on somewhere. There's, a bull market going on somewhere, even if it's on the short side. So yeah, it looks like you're getting, real compression, and that's why it's becoming a real stock pickers market. You really have to hone in. So for me, I feel very comfortable being long WRK and very comfortable short, being short ZM. And then there's a whole bunch of things in the middle that just are banging around and somewhat arbitrary right now. Uber, is making a nice move today. UBER. It's making a little bit of a push. I did see, Uber going higher. It's still in this big trading range, but you've got these lower highs. So, Uber may be close to some kind of breakout, but it just, I mean, we've had a lot of fun for the last couple of months, and now it looks like it could be hard work, trying to push out those next returns. Michelle says, where do you see Lyft from here? So, Lyft will always be a good buy at some point, but right now it looks pretty ugly. It looks like it's forming this double top here. It's got nasty key reversal today. It looks like actually the next move in Lyft is lower. So might have to start looking at, buying this maybe in the low 50s again. But right now it's it's looking ugly on the dailies and the weeklies. So, there was a shift with Lyft was stronger than Uber, and now it looks like those positions are reversing. Gamash says, looks like GME failed. It's not failing. By going down, that's exactly where it's going to. That stock's not worth more than $20, and that's where it's going to go. All this nonsense in the last couple of weeks pushing a stock from $9 to $500, those markets always end in tears for those who chase them. So if you didn't make your money on the way up, I guarantee you this is going to be, under $50 at some point. So it's probably an excellent short here. I'm going to probably start checking out the puts. The puts are so expensive, so I'll probably just short the stock. Um, Cello says, "Is there descending head and shoulders on the crude oil?" I don't know what a descending head and shoulders are, but I'll check it out. With maybe one shoulder lower than the other. So I don't see that at all. I know that we hit this resistance level, this multi-year resistance level. It's between 65 and 70, and now you're just in a chop too. I don't think it's going to go up or down. Yeah, I mean the markets look concerning right now. Concerning not from we're being on the wrong side, but that, look, we've had so much action for the last year. Everything you've gotten in, there's been so much follow through. And now it looks like you're getting that volatility compression and things are going into a chop. And that sucks. We've been spoiled, at least I have, but there's always going to be a move. What I try and look for is a dislocation, kind of an opportunity like 6 weeks ago, even though the NASDAQ made a new high, it put on a certain pattern there, and I thought it would come off. And I bet a lot. And even though it was a relatively small move, I mean, the NASDAQ did fall 10 to 15% in a 2 week period. So that's what I'm looking for, just these big moves up or down where I can take a piece of the middle out of. And the danger now is that the markets aren't giving you, 10 or 15%. They're not giving you 1 or 2% before they're kind of just, doing this. So, but something like GameStop, GME, I mean, I would short this thing, and I think I am going to short it. At some point it was uncomfortable because you never knew how much they were going to push it up against you. And to me, that was just financial engineering. But now I think all of the air is being let out of that balloon. And, it's trading at 137 now, and tomorrow it could be at $80. So that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for something that's going to move. And I can assess the risk reward. So I think there's very little risk of being short GameStop now and probably a lot of reward. So you have to kind of really search for those opportunities. I think WRK, it's a sleeper. It may not move for the next 2 weeks, but I would, feel comfortable every day going to sleep with that, not feeling that I'm going to wake up and the market's going to be down 500 and, I'm going to get tagged out on that. So I think that's what you kind of have to do in today's market. You have to be really, really selective and try and find the things that are going to move. So Gamas says NCLH looks like it's going to be destroyed. NCLH. Norwegian Credit. Let me see. You're fighting government subsidies. I don't know if it's going to be destroyed. It could be. There is a lot of resistance here at 33, but I don't know. I think the other thing is it just goes sideways for a long time. Yeah, it does look like it is topped out, and it could translate to a move lower. I wouldn't discount that. I just don't know if that'll happen either. Bart, I don't look at any fundamentals. WRK has amazing technicals. Weekly, double bottom, inverted head and shoulders. It's just been hanging out at this consolidation for a couple of weeks, banging between 51 and 54. And the more something consolidates, with this big base, the more the next move is going to be higher. Ski says, is Alibaba bullish? It looks like it broke out today on something. Could be. Could be. Yeah, we hit a major bottom at 225, and today we're gapping higher. So yeah, whatever is happening there, that may be the way to go. I like that. Yeah, so I'm looking at the weeklies, and Baba came down, but I don't really see a pattern that it came down. It just came down. It hit this long-term uptrend line, supported at that 225, and is now gapped up. So that energy looks like it's going to continue. Yeah, that looks actually. I'm going to put that on my radar again. It kind of went to sleep on me, but yeah, that's something that looks like it's deserves to have a little attention paid to it. Cornell says, "Do you have a program with Mr. Zach?" Yeah, so Zach heads up our elite program. Are they my right hand? Well, they're head of my sales team. You don't need to be confused. No, Zach is a good guy. Cornell. James one looks at UEC. It looks like a penny stock. Had a pretty bad reversal, two reversals at that 367. But if it can, keep consolidating in here, I would say your risk point is to this one bar right here. 250 is your risk. If it takes out 250, it's probably going to go back in the chop. If it holds here, above 250 for a while, let me just check this out. Now you have to go back a long time to see. It does have an interesting inverted head and shoulders, which is right around the dollar. And you could have traded that to, almost $3.50. But now you're at this historical resistance level. I would just, let this consolidate in here. And then if it starts going back up, drifting back up to 350, you may take a swing at this, So I think 250 is your risk. And then probably just needs to do some work here between, 270 and 340. Let it work in there. That could be interesting. Could be very interesting. Yeah. Any European stocks on your radar? Not really, Bart. Not really. Uh, Dog wants to know about IBM. This was a stock on my radar. I bought it early, a couple months ago. Um, yeah, I think IBM could be a bit of a trap because you do see some firming action here, but you've got such a long-term downtrend. You've got such a steeplechase of these lower highs, which is not to say this thing couldn't go to 145 again, and still be in the cadence of these, lower highs. And at some point, if it took out these lower highs, it would turn around. So there is a base here, but I just fear that it's kind of stopping at this resistance level, which is at the top end of this ascending triangle. So, if you break above that, you may have another, leg from 136 to 135. So may just need to consolidate here for a while. Let me check that out. Yeah, it just seems there's some resistance here. But if you get above 137 again, it probably could run to 145. James says, I've been reading uranium is coming to shortages worldwide, maybe a good sector for the next few years. So again, James, you know, look, all these EV plays, we've been told that the government of the United States is subsidizing huge EV. GM is moving into the EV space. It's been such a, huge thing. So you read that and you look at Plug Power, you look at FCell, and those stocks are trading 50% off their highs, even though we know that this is a growing space. So that's why I would say you got to you got to understand price. It's all about risk and reward. A story, it could play out, it could not play out, it could already be played out. And so, to me, it all comes down to price. What is the setup? Where can I get in the setup? How can I look at the risk reward? And can I justify, the risk for the reward? And those are the considerations. But if you read all this stuff, yeah, I mean, chips are in short supply, so I'm sure you could find, chip makers. And so why wouldn't that make sense? So the market doesn't make sense. You have to buy based on, on price. So, there was another stock, Blink, BLNK, that was running for a while. That was $65. Now it's $40, even though, so this EV space, is a sexy space. Everyone wants a piece of it. Meantime, some of these stocks are 30 to 50% off their highs. So you got to be very careful about, chasing some of these story stocks. But James, I think that UEC, I could definitely see the inverted head and shoulders at 1 that led to a run till 4. So if you see those chart patterns, you could play it. If you see that at 1, get in there, get it as it's about to coming out, and then you would have had a quadruple. Now what it's going to do from here, it's right at long-term resistance. So I would just let it work. And the more work it does without failing, that just tells you it's just consolidating for the next push higher. It's kind of like Bitcoin. Bitcoin went up so far so fast, and I was saying to my wife, you actually want it to go sideways for 3, 4, 5 months. Let it go between 55 and 60. Build that base, so as long as it doesn't come off, if it builds a base, just like WRK. WRK has been in this sideways thing for, 2 months now, between 50 and 54, just banging. But the more work it does here, then it's just going to, have the leg from 55 to 65. It'll go like that. All right, guys. So thanks a ton for checking in. Sorry I was a little late today. I'm just recovering from surgery. I had to go to my doctor, and they kept me waiting for an hour. So welcome to the United States. So sorry I didn't make it on time this morning. Hopefully I answered some of your questions. Again, you have to be very selective and very careful about what you're looking for. And, at the end of the day, you have to have a given amount of reward for any risk you take. And typically I like to set up trades where, my risk reward is at least 2.5, 3 times my risk. Because if you can do that on a continuous basis, you'll make money. What's wrong is that most people set up their trades with like a 1-to-1, correlation. If they're trying to make 15 pips in the market, they're risking 15 pips. Then they also got to pay the broker 3 pips. Then they're trading in and out all day. And so the risk and reward, do not justify the act. And then eventually you go broke and you wonder why. But if you buy WRK, here at 54 and you risk $4 to make 15, I'll do that all day long. Have a 3, 4-to-1 risk reward. If you do that consistently, you will make money. And GK, thanks a lot. Yana, thank you. Ski, you're welcome. Isabel, thank you. Do you do value investing, like buying a stock for the long term? Yes, I do that also. I buy very unsexy names, like Exxon, like Simon Property Group, like IYR, just to, get a return, hang out, in areas where I think WRK is a value stock that you can just hang out there. And I think no matter what happens in the market, you can kind of feel like you'll be okay. And even if it doesn't go anywhere, like some of these other stocks, you're going to get a return while you're, just doing nothing. So yeah, I have my, investments diversified all over the place. And then, I have my play accounts where, I short Zoom and, do all that kind of stuff. Michelle, the doctors here are the worst on the planet, but thanks a ton. All right, Ayuk, thank you. All right, we'll see you guys next time. Thanks a ton for checking in and have a great day.